Welcome to Vets to PM's Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Your primary host is Eric Doc Wright, PhD, certified manager, military veteran, serial founder, best-selling business author, philosopher, linguist, and coach. Your other host is Jeremy Burdick, project management professional, scrum master, product owner, and retired Air Force chief, and the current COO of Vets to PM and the Professional Development Unit University, where we will interview veterans successful in corporate America and business to bring you nuggets of wisdom every episode to make you more successful. Next, let's introduce today's guest. Our guest today is Branden Irvine. He is sbLiftOff's Director of Sales and Marketing, and he brings a strong background for driving high-performance teams and global brands. He's worked for Stanley Black and Decker, which you've probably known him as DEWALT, Craftsman, Irwin, Lenox, Mac Tools. He's also worked for Worthington Industries, and then now he is with sbLiftOff. He's awarded the Bronze Star for service in Afghanistan, and at sbLiftOff, he's deeply committed to the company's charitable work with veteran entrepreneurs. He served as an officer in the United States Army 10th Mountain Division, or Light Infantry, deployed to Afghanistan as a platoon leader of Cavalry Scouts in 2012, and again as an executive officer in 2013. In addition to being an executive officer, Mr. Irvine was also an advisor to the Afghan National Police and Afghan National Army on logistics. He was awarded the Bronze Star Medal and holds Army Commendation Medal and a Combat Action Medal. He received his MBA from Duke University and a BS in Political Science from SUNY Brockport. Very interesting as we go into this, a little bit different than in some of our normal shows. We're going to talk about mergers and acquisitions, but altogether, just advice on a good transition. I hope you enjoy.
Side and commissioned as an officer in the Army out of SUNY Brockport. It's a small school in upstate New York. I did ROTC there and did 4 years as an officer. Kind of got out right at the captain mark. Didn't want to keep going after that. Spent 2 deployments in Afghanistan. The first one was in Wardak Province, RC East. That's where I did my platoon leader time. And then the second deployment was in Kunar Province, RC East, Afghanistan, where I was HHTXO and also an SFAT advisor on logistics to the Afghan police and army.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Obviously, I also come from a family of it. My grandfather was beginning when the Air Force first swapped over in like the late 40s. He joined the Air Force, and then my dad joined the Air Force, and then I joined the Air Force. And we all were enlisted, so I can see where their sentiment is. My brother-in-law Jake just got picked up for pilot training, so nice. He's go from E to O flying airplanes. So it's gonna be really cool to see one of them break the mold.
Very cool. Love my pilots. Have mad respect and admiration for pilots. They did a lot of awesome work for us guys on the ground over there. So
yeah,
talking to those guys.
So now that we've got a bit about your history and did the captain thing both in Afghanistan. I mean, obviously pulling tough tours at tough times. What made the decision to transition out rather than just make it a career?
I thought I was going to be a career guy. I kind of looked up to my dad in a big way, and he was a career guy. And I'll never forget this. Being an armor officer, in an infantry division, I thought I wanted to be the cool guy, go fight, do all the fun stuff that you see on TV. My dad said, "Don't do that. You're going to hate it." And sure enough, after 4 years of doing it, I said, "Man, this isn't quite nearly as fun as I thought it was going to be." So I, made the decision to transition out. I was branch detail from MI. I thought I wanted to go do the fun stuff first and then go into the MI community, and just didn't really feel kind of overly attracted to that community based on what I saw while I was active. So made the decision to transition largely uninformed, I think is a good way to put it. It went well, don't get me wrong, but I think it could have gone a lot worse without some luck.
Yeah. So what did you do to help it go well? Any tips or tricks that you learned along the way? I mean, obviously you didn't step on all the landmines like some people do. And you had a bit of a family embrace too. So like you said, your dad had advice for you. And although you didn't take it well in the service,
Yeah.
I'm sure you started listening when it was time to transition.
Yeah. So the biggest rock for me was now wife, then girlfriend. She was a huge kind of sounding board and safety net for me leaving the military. And I talked to a lot of guys getting out today, and what I always say was I didn't do enough around finding mentors. I did not talk to enough people that had already done the transition, successfully landed in the civilian world, whether it be in business or academia or going to grad school. I didn't have enough of those conversations. And now I kind of make it a point to find my old Army friends or mentors that are still in and getting out and talk to them and, say, hey, this is what's different about the civilian world. That's, than the Army. So that's the biggest miss on my part. I should have done more of that.
Yeah, great. I like the way you put it too. I mean, girlfriend, now wife. I mean, that's a support structure essentially. So build a support structure, build a network of people and mentors around you that can advise you, because you don't know what you don't know, right at that moment. So, and every transition's fairly unique, but there are repeatable things that we can learn from each other and from the past. So.
Sure. Yeah. Another one I think would be, don't go as fast. If you have an urgent need and burning desire, then that's fine. And that's kind of where I was. But hindsight being 2020, I should have gone on to captain's career course and spent that, 18 months, 2 years, really thinking about what do I want to do next. And instead, I kind of just plunged into the business world, which again worked out in a very big way. I've been very happy. But career course is kind of, a bit of a downtime for an Army officer. And it's, not as intense as deployment. So I should have taken some more time and just gone to career course and really explored other things.
Yeah.
So that was another thing I thought about a lot.
Yeah, that makes great sense. And that's good advice for anybody listening out there in MTA Nation. So talk to me a little bit about, you said business a couple times now. What are you doing now? And what's the difference between big business and small business?
Yeah, so now I work at a company called sbLiftOff. We are a national M&A advisory firm, so mergers and acquisitions, which is just a simple way of saying we help people buy and sell companies. We have deep expertise in not only M&A, but we are focused on the government contracting community. So only federal government contractors are the kind of people that we work with. We work mostly on the sell side. About 60 to 70% of our business is helping a business owner sell their company. We work a little bit on the buy side. So if you want to go out and do an acquisition, we help you do that. And then we do valuations. That's a big part of our business as well. So if you want to understand what your company's valued at today, we do that work. And then there's some, small consulting work around M&A strategy prep and litigation supports and, that kind of stuff. So that's what we do. And it's a lot of fun. And we're a smaller business. We're a team of about 14 people, some, senior advisors here and there. And this is really the first small business that I worked for. When I first got out, I landed at a company called Worthington Industries. Great company. They're publicly traded. I don't know what they're doing today, maybe 2 billion, 3 billion. But fantastic company. Second organization I went to was Stanley Black and Decker. Again, publicly traded on New York Stock Exchange. They are roughly 18 or 20 billion. So both huge companies, very different experiences. And I think the thing I've enjoyed most about sbLiftOff so far, because I've been here about a year now, is our ability to execute and get things done as a small and agile team has just been so much fun.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, good words. And you actually sparked something for somebody that's exiting the military, right? Military would fall, I would think, under your, and correct me if I'm wrong, for sure, is it would fall under that big business, right? I mean, we're talking billions and billions of dollars, huge infrastructure, bureaucratic hierarchy. And then you get a small company, and it'd be more like a special ops unit where you go with a small man team and you go execute, and you have a lot of latitude on how you execute that mission based on the circumstances that are brought to you in that moment.
It's a great analogy. One of the things that I was reflecting on in that, exact concept is in about December of last year, we decided that we wanted to bring a new service offering to the market. That was an initial conversation in December. By February, it was up on the website, and by March, we had sold our first engagement.
Beautiful.
And sheer collaboration through the team. There's no silos, and just pure dedication to getting things done. And it was, it paid off in a big way. At my previous two organizations, and bringing a new service or product offering to the market just takes a ton of time and alignment. And at a company like the second one, there's a ton of politics involved. I think I spent 40 to 50% of my time convincing finance that the business we were chasing was good business. Don't have to do that in a small company.
Yeah, right. And hopefully your hunch is right. But if you fail and you fail fast, you learn from it really quickly. And you're like, okay, maybe that's not a good line of business, and the failure is okay. At least I've found in a smaller business, it's better to learn fast than invest a ton of time, effort, money, and then find out it's no good, or you break even. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's better to just fail fast, get after it, know what you know empirically, and then bounce.
Yep.
So,
couldn't agree more.
That's cool.
On the flip side of that, the thing I was thinking about from a benefit of being at big companies first was get really exposed to a lot of really cool stuff early on. Understanding different markets, how to enter new markets, how to stand up sales and marketing teams, how to build processes, how to do process improvement. Having worked at big businesses for the first kind of 7 or 8 years of my career before coming to a small company has benefited me in a huge way here. And I'm glad to have those experiences.
Yeah, it's kind of cool how life works itself out, right? I mean,
you're
where you're at because you were prepared to be there.
Yeah.
And not the other way around. Had you gone there first, I mean, I don't know. It may have worked out great. It may not have, but ultimately you've brought a lot of wisdom to a small team because you had such exposure to a large organization. Yeah. I would say some of our long in the tooth vets probably could do the same, just in the sense that you get up to the headquarter level, it's nothing more than a big business. It's constant policies, constant, hey, this requisition paper, oh, wait, I've got to build, essentially change management and that felt need before it ever happens. No, this is important, boss. We got to get this technology into the airplane, right? We'll do it in about 10 years. Like, no,
exactly.
We need it yesterday. It's too funny. So, I mean, out of the two, what are some of the lessons that you learned transitioning from big to small?
Lessons learned from big to small. I think one thing that I always try to make sure I'm doing throughout the day is over communicate to the left and right of you and up and down. And as long as everybody feels informed and aligned, then you're going to lead a high power team and get things done.
Wow.
In the big companies, you have to, because if you don't have alignment across the board, then you'll get crushed by the politics. And in a small company, by over communicating like that, it's just going to keep people informed and motivated, and everybody's going to go out and crush it together. Oh,
wow. Yeah. Great advice. I couldn't agree more as well. I mean, it's from a project manager, 90% of success comes from communication, right?
Yeah.
90% of a PM's job is communicating.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. I mean, you have to communicate. You have to get everybody on the same sheet of music, and then everybody's rowing in the same direction. But then on a small team, it's even more impactful. Like if you get a couple people off shooting, they can really pull the tide with them because there's not enough other people pulling against it. So
yeah.
Well said. All right. So now you're in the M&A and in investment banking style, so talk to me a little bit about the process. Like what goes on? Why would a veteran be interested?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the government contracting world, there is something we call a set aside. And a set aside is basically we'll make something up. Say the government has $100 million for some IT services. They're going to say, we have to set aside 40 million of that, 50 million of that for certain designations in the set aside world. So those designations are things like small businesses, woman-owned small businesses, service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And so an SDVOSB. And that money that is designated for those SDVOSBs can only be bid on and worked on by service disabled veteran owned companies. And there is not enough veterans in the space that have access to capital to both buy and own these currently existing SDVOSBs. So from an opportunity standpoint, there are lots of business owners in the baby boomer generation looking to retire, Vietnam veterans that need to sell their companies. And there is just an increasing amount of opportunity for veterans to work in this space.
Oh, that's really cool. So then you would specialize in one, investing in that veteran to go buy a company that's existing.
Maybe. So for example, right now we are working with 2 or 3 SDVOSBs. And when we help that business owner sell their company, it has to be a veteran that buys it, that has the service disabled veteran tag. If someone else buys it, they can do the work that the company has won the contracts on, but they can't recompete it. And the beauty of a government contracting company is really the government hands out these contracts that are, again, making numbers up, $50 million for the next 5 years. So they spread that out for $10 million a year. And that company knows and feels really good about, hey, I have to go do this work. I'm going to get $10 million a year for it. And now I have revenue on the books. So now these government contracting companies are essentially a portfolio of contracts that they've won. So if a SDVOSB has won contracts worth of $70 million over the next 5 to 8 years, a veteran that comes in and buys it knows that they're going to have revenue to $70-80 million over the next 5 to 8 years. They feel really good about it. The nuance that comes at play is the SDVOSB has to own at least 51% of the company. So the veteran has to own 51%. They can take investors and, someone else can own the 49%, but they have to remain in control or they're no longer considered the service disabled veteran owned small business.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I like the way you put it too. I mean, if you've got a contract, if you buy a company that's already won a contract, you've got quote unquote guaranteed revenue for a little while. And then hopefully with that past performance, you can recompete and win it again.
Exactly.
You guys help the veteran recompete, or is that kind of outside of your?
Yeah, our full service is from initial engagement to closing the deal. So if you want to buy a company, we'll help you do that and then close the transaction, but we don't necessarily help operate anything. Gotcha. We are strictly on the M&A side.
And what about capital? Like, do they help with the capital to get the
So yeah, we help veterans get introduced to lenders that know the GovCon space, because GovCon is different than commercial. And we work with different lenders that understand the space.
Okay.
You go to a lender and say, hey, I want to buy this company. They're government contracting. Most will say, okay, let's talk about it. But unless they truly understand the space, then it's unlikely they're going to lend on it.
Yeah. So you brought up GovCon. So talk about, service disabled veteran owned businesses in the GovCon space.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. That's it's only a small part of our business. We're working with one right now. It's a woman-owned small business. She's fantastic, has a great company, has built it really well, and has a huge social mission enterprise behind it. I think a huge percentage of her employees are service disabled veterans and economically disabled, disadvantaged people. So she's a big client of ours. Let's see. 3 SDVOSBs. And then the other thing worth mentioning about the government contracting world is, even if they're not like a service disabled veteran small business, there's a whole category called small business as well. And small business in the government contracting world means you're doing work under a certain, it's called a NICS code, NAICS code. And the NICS code has a size standard, basically something to the effect of, hey, you can be considered a small business as long as your 5-year revenue average is less than the NICS code size standard of, call it $34 million. As soon as your company hits $34 million from a 5-year revenue average perspective, you're now considered a large business. So you can no longer bid on the small business contracts. Ooh. Now you're competing with people like Leidos, Amentum, Lockheed Martin, and it becomes way harder. So a big issue for the federal government today is 90% of the companies that size out of these NICS code size standards just die. They go bankrupt. They go away. They shut down because they can't win business in the full and open market versus those big companies. Those big companies just have 20, 40 different contracting officers that work on these proposals day and night. And the small businesses of the world don't have that kind of, staff and capital and people. So this includes the veteran-owned small businesses. There's a whole world of companies that just live under these NICS code size standards. And the defense industrial base, from a quantity perspective, has significantly reduced of how many companies are serving the federal government. So it's a bit of a problem long term for the government on how do we keep our small businesses serving the government healthy.
Yeah, wow. I was unaware that even if you're still small, but based on revenue, you NAICS out, and that's super interesting. I mean, that it almost motivates you not to make money.
Right. I mean, there are, we call it a lifestyle business. We talk to certain people and certain owners that will run it as a lifestyle business and say, we're going to do, 25 million revenue a year and no less, no more. And, we reap the profits, and that's fine.
Right.
The other thing worth mentioning about the GovCon market is starting a government contracting company is incredibly challenging for the first 5 years. And the reason for that is the agencies that bid these contracts require your company to have what's called past performance. And it's essentially saying you executed well or you executed poorly on these last contracts. And they have a pretty stringent rating system on how to score your company on that. Well, if you're starting a company, you don't have past performance, right? So how do you win business and win a contract? So it's a chicken or egg situation. And what these companies end up doing is doing a bunch of different teaming arrangements and mentor proteges and joint ventures. And those are all pretty kind of challenging and hard to navigate for small businesses as well. So between the fact that these companies die when they size out of a NICS code and the fact that the government makes it so hard to start these companies, small businesses are getting squeezed from both ends when they're trying to work for the federal government, which, oh, by the way, is a little bit important to our country.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, you figure so much economic churn comes from small businesses that, I mean, I can't remember the facts. If Doc was on here, he would know it immediately. It's like $90 billion is just generated by all these small businesses within, and then it's all the tax dollars and everything else, and they don't have the loopholes that, the Lockheeds of the world have to where they're paying big dollars. But yeah, I think that's a super interesting concept that you bring up. So now, as a transitioning veteran, so say I've got some chops in business ownership and I want to go for it. This is where you guys niche in and say, hey, listen, you want to go buy a company? Here we go. Here's a list of folks that are looking to sell.
Yep.
Are you interested in that? So would they come to you like that and just say, hey, Branden, I'm super interested in sbLiftOff. How do I buy a company that's already doing contracts?
Yep, very much so. So we've had a lot of conversations over the last couple months with individual veterans that are either have access to their own capital or they have investors behind them, and they're willing to take on some debt to buy a company that's already executing. And they will look at the companies that we have available, which we've had, a few right now. And then if none of those companies work out, the conversation can lead to, hey, let's go out and find one for you. That doesn't always work the best just because, our fees can get a bit heavy for an individual searcher. Our buy side engagement is a bit more kind of geared towards already an established company doing it. But we're in market every day and we talk to people all the time. And we come across deals almost daily.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine someone could say, hey, keep your eye out for lawn cutting on Dyess Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Let's buy that business because
they
spend $1 million a year on just cutting grass, or whatever else.
Yep. One of the individual searchers kind of told me a story about exactly that, actually. a few weeks ago when I was meeting with him in the DC area. He had heard of a company that was doing, I don't even remember what it was, but millions of dollars of revenue for servicing like the generals that live outside the Pentagon. Their lawns. The government's spending that much money on cutting their grass, planting flowers, and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, it's big business. I mean, everywhere you look, the government is the biggest customer of small businesses across at least America. But it's probably further than that too. But ultimately, yeah, wow. I mean, it's such a unique offering that you guys have. What else? Do you want anything you want to bring up about it, or?
A couple other cool things that I really enjoy about my job. These business owners, we call it the lower middle market. These are passionate people. And this is one of the reasons why we love focusing on them. These are people that thought of an idea, sat at their table and said, I'm going to start a company to serve the federal government, right? The idea of service is inherently ingrained in who they are, giving back to the community, left the military. And everyone is mission oriented and mission driven to do their small part of the work for the government. And that's really cool. We look at these companies that are doing $20-25 million in revenue as congratulations. It is hard to start a company first. It's even harder to grow it and survive growing it. And we think that's awesome. A lot of the other kind of investment banks and, big firms out in the world, they're great companies, but they look at $2 million in EBITDA and say, it's too small for me.
Mm-hmm.
We don't look at it that way. The founder owner is a truly unique individual and we love working with them. And we take a lot of pride in the fact that we get to kind of preserve their legacy and take their company from their hands and transfer it into another person or another company that's going to truly take care of it and let it live on. Because we always say we don't do a deal unless it's a good deal for both the buyer and the seller. And a lot of that starts with, where do you want your company to end up? It's like their baby or their kids. They've grown it for 20 years and they really feel that way about it. So we love our market. And then the other thing I was thinking about was I get to talk to a lot of veterans because we sit on the board of the NVSBC, which is the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. And their purpose in the world is to kind of bring all the different veteran-owned businesses that serve the federal government together. So they do monthly meetings in DC. They do a huge annual conference that is where I met Eric down in Florida. And I think they had 1,000 people there. They're predicting 2,500 next year. So we're deeply ingrained in the NVSBC, which, is pretty fun for me because I get to meet all these different guys. So that's a lot of fun.
Cool. Now, if someone was transitioning and they said, hey, I want to get into the M&A world like yourself, what would you suggest kind of pathways? What would they go for? Like, how would they kind of get where you're at?
That is a good question. And specifically working like in the type of work that I do or to buy a company.
Yeah, well, let's go with the kind of work with you like as the merger and acquisition specialist. But then I love the second thing is, how do they go about buying the company? The first, maybe, is there a certification, a degree program? Like, what would you recommend they do?
If you wanted to get into M&A right out of the Army or the military, the Air Force, sorry, I always default to the Army. I would say go to business school. Go to business school, especially if you don't have I apologize, my dog is kind of popping up in the background.
I'm loving it.
Go to business school. That is essentially how I got involved in sbLiftOff. I was in Florida hanging out on vacation, and my peer at the company, Jordan, he runs the transaction side of the house. He texted our cohort-wide group chat and said, hey, we've got a job at this firm and, we're boutique M&A, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, 2 months later, I was hired on with the company. So, we went to business school together and at Duke and got involved. But doing that first will get you involved with the right people. Almost in some way, you'll meet someone that does M&A or has experience with it, can introduce you to the right person. Not only that, but the internships in the summer periods and the kind of sponsorships you can get from other companies, you can find the right investment banks or the right M&A advisors. If you're just coming out of the military, that's going to be your best bet if you don't know someone doing the work already.
Very cool. Yeah, building that. It kind of goes back to the same thing with transition, right? You're building a network of people that know that you were like, hey, you were in business school with this person. So, that makes a lot of sense. And then a business degree, obviously. That's a no-brainer. Yeah. All right. So now switch gears, getting out of the service, want to buy a building or, not a building, but a business. What's your advice there?
First thing you need to ask yourself is, do you have the capital, right? Do you have, whether it's a few $100,000 lying around or the ability to find, money through friends and family or investors? That's totally fine. And do you have the kind of mental capacity to take on debt? You're almost certainly going to need to take a loan. And right now, what a lot of our veterans are doing with us is taking on an SBA loan, which is a pretty favorable loan. Interest rates in the capital markets have gone up over the last 12 months. So that's a little bit not on the beneficial side of the veteran. But an SBA loan I think it goes up to $5 million and is paid back over 15 years. So when you look at these contracts and you feel good about the backlog, you say, okay, I feel like I can pay this debt back pretty easily, depending on the finances of the company. You've got to do a ton of due diligence. So assuming all those things are yes, then the challenge becomes, how do I find the company that I want to buy? And it's hard. It is hard. It is hard. It is hard. Like I said, we've talked to a lot of these guys, and sometimes their search takes more than a year. So, where's your income at for that year while you're full-time search mode? Or are you part-time search mode? Figuring that out is kind of a big milestone to get through as well. And then there's a couple different options. A lot of private equity firms will bring on and sponsor veterans. These guys are going to get a minority chunk of the company when they buy it. The PE firm will get more, but the PE firm will essentially pay you a salary for 6 to 12 months, depending on the firm, to go out and do the search. So that's one option. If you want 100% of the company and you want to buy it yourself, then your main option is to talk to people like us. We're not the only M&A advisor in the world. So finding the M&A people that are doing the deals and see the deals and have access to them is your next step. And again, that can be a challenge if you're new to the space.
All right. So how does one find you? I mean, what's the best way other than probably sbLiftOff.com?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer for that, to be honest. I feel like I learn about a new M&A advisor in GovCon like every month or two. The interesting part about what we do is there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kind of solo single people that do what we do. And they're typically maybe a former lawyer or a former accountant, and they did a deal and they really liked it. So they want to kind of do it for other people, and they do 2 or 3 a year. And that's, that's their, that's how they make their living. There are fewer and fewer bigger firms that are doing 10 to 15 deals a year like us. That's kind of our quantity perspective. And then there are even less of the big firms doing the, $500 million deals and the $200 million deals, Houlihan Lokey's and, those kind of guys. There's even fewer. It's just a really hard business to scale.
Yeah, makes sense. And what would prevent, like, for example, why would one use a firm like you guys rather than just go try to negotiate direct? Like, what is the major benefit?
Yeah, great question. The likelihoods of you closing a deal are significantly higher with an M&A advisor involved. That's one. 2 is the deal terms are going to be substantially better with an M&A advisor involved, unless you have, kind of substantial experience in doing this. Between our CEO and our transaction team, they've seen hundreds of millions of dollars worth of negotiated deals. And there's just, it's hard to put a value or a dollar price on that figure, right? We have client calls all the time that someone says, hey, I'm running this company. We're doing $20 million a year. I have a buyer who's interested. Can you help me? Absolutely. let's look at the terms they're offering you. Most of the time we can say, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. So terms will be and should be better. And then we do everything. It's a white glove treatment. We manage our transaction. We manage the lawyers. We manage the accountants. We do the finance analysis. We do the tax analysis. A deal takes 3 months to close, assuming you have a buyer and a seller. If you don't have a party lined up to buy the company already, in a perfect world, it takes 6 months. Most of the time, it takes 9 months, and oftentimes it can take more. And most of our compensation as sbLiftOff, the vast majority of it comes upon a successful close of a deal. So most of the time we are working for clients for 6, 9, and 12 months for very little pay until that deal closes.
Wow. Yeah. It's kind of like don't go to court without a lawyer kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Or the other one we use often is you always have a realtor to sell your house. You think you could do it alone, but you almost always have a realtor.
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah, and it's the paperwork you don't want to do. It's the not seeing the blind spots in the deal that you guys would see, and it's maybe undervaluing yourself because you don't see the value in it because you don't know how to value it appropriately. So exactly. I can see that too. Wow, that's cool. So as we start to wrap this up, any parting shots for a transitioning veteran and any kind of, I guess, life enrichment that you would advise that maybe you did. And what I mean by that is like a good book that's inspiring or knowledge giving or just something that you did, you felt like gave you a leg up.
I think from a life enrichment standpoint, I would say two things. One is the selfish side of me, and then one is the family side of me. My 4 years in the Army was so fast, I didn't get to do kind of anything, right? I commissioned, did a year of training, deployed, got back. We went to West Point, taught cadets for 6 months, and that was like a mini deployment in the States. We trained up and deployed again, and it was literally 4 years of my life had gone by like that. So when I got out, my entire focus for life enrichment was just having fun and doing stuff. Work was important, but it was not my primary focus at that time. I wanted to really understand who I was as a kind of a young, motivated and person that had free time outside of work. Because now I'm in a corporate career where I work hard, 40, 50 hours a week, whatever. But I did everything I could from a hobby standpoint and, fun standpoint, try to be about everything. Oh, you want to go do something? Let's go do it. I started skydiving. I did that. I've done triathlons. I'm now like pretty addicted to golf in a big way that's driving my wife nuts a little bit. So finding hobbies and just doing things and making life fun in a different way than you did in the military, I think is really, really important. And then the other side of that for me, and this will already have been done for a lot of veterans getting out, is I have a 1-year-old daughter and she is just in my world now, and she's just been the most fun thing I've ever done, even despite all the cool stuff I've done in life, driving tanks and jumping out of planes and helicopters and all that. So for me, it's, just be about everything as a civilian. Once you get out, do things you didn't think you were going to enjoy with new people. And then, family is number one. Without my wife, I don't think my transition would have been as successful as it was.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. The most challenging and rewarding thing that I've ever done is raise 4 daughters.
4 daughters.
Yeah. So, and they're all adults. And then one day I came home and said, I'm retiring. And my wife said, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, oh, so we're doing it completely as civilians this time. So I don't even, this kid's not even going to ever know that I was in the military for the most part.
That's funny. Yeah. We're at the 13 or 14 month mark, and I would love one more, maybe. Some days it's like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, she's awesome.
Yeah. It's a cool challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Well, all right. It's been great having you on. I'll leave it to you for the last word, and then we'll close it down.
My last words, I'll bring it back to what my platoon motto was, which was don't suck, and let's do it.
I like it. I like it. All right. Thanks,
Cool.
Brandon. I appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you for tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy, powered by Vets to PM. If we piqued your interest, but you want more details, please head over to the website vetstopm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful and lucrative career.